Hello and welcome back to the channel. It's Mark from PowerSonic and Apprentice 121. Today we're on another solar PV job. This one again incorporates an AIO. We've got a 6 kilowatt PV array, and as you can see behind me here we've got the inverter on the wall already, another Solax. But we're going to delve into all of that. We're going to focus a little bit more on some of the roof work on this one because it's been a while since we've showed bits and pieces of that. I'll show you some hooks going down, how we've set the rails and array out, and have a little speak about that up on the roof itself. This, as you can see here, I'm waiting to test behind me, so we're towards the end of the job now. The AIO is downstairs, so we've got one of those again with a gateway, and we can show all of this system ties together to give the customer the potential to have up to 12 kilowatts of power in an off-grid scenario. But let's get straight to it. Let's move on with the video. If you've got any questions, don't forget to drop them in below, and please, if you haven't already, give us a thumbs up and subscribe to the channel. So you can see we're up on the roof here and the guys have already got 2 rails on. We're going for 10 hooks per rail. There's only 7 panels going on each length of the array, so that's an overspec of hooks, but we are in quite an exposed area and we thought it made sense to stick a few extra ones in. So you can see these here, they're ground out underneath. So we've got the grinding off the back and the hooks sit over the top of the tile, as you can see there. Showed it loads already on the channel, but they go over, screw down, a couple of screws in, grind the back of the tile out, pop them back over, and then the rails, we just loosely fasten those in for now. And then when we've got all 4 on, so it's going to be 2 rows in portrait up here, we level them up with a longer rail, as I've shown again on the channel before, and that allows for your array to end up flat. So once you've got your panels on, is what you don't want is it up and down. We can see there's a bit of bow in this already from the roof structure. It's just the timbers in all the buildings, they're not often straight. So there's that aspect that we want to get covered. And yeah, that's kind of where we're at on this one. As you can see, 2 rails on, hopefully get the other 2 on. You can see what we're talking about with the open aspect out the front. We are in the middle of the North Yorkshire countryside, on a sort of farm location, so the wind is a possible enemy here, and it comes off this side, which is why the array is going to be set over to this side of the roof. We're trying to push it away from the wind kind of getting underneath it, rather than set it central to the roof. It's a customer who actually suggested that, and it makes a lot of sense. Obviously they're aware of the sort of wind they can get up here. Nice big wind turbine over there, not the one we're working with, ours is over the other side. But yeah, we're going to set it down at that end, coming in about 500 to 700 mil, I think, off the edge over there, and we're going to have a good 2, possibly 3 meters. The edge of our array, I think, where the guys have marked it, is here. So we're finishing here, there's all this space there. So yeah, that is primarily just to give us a bit of protection from the wind in the way you put these together. So I've seen posts on LinkedIn before where people have made complaints at other installers for not setting their arrays central to the roof, both in the vertical and horizontal planes. But sometimes there's reasons for that: shading, wind, you don't know the circumstances. It's really easy to judge and comment, and I try to avoid doing that without knowing the context. Lovely bright sunny day. It's the only sunny day of the week, so we're hoping to get all the panels up here today. Little lecky van down there, and all been well, we can do that. You can see over there is the east coast, so that's actually the sea in the distance, probably about a mile away. But yeah, it's a kind of rural location we're at. Some horses out in there in the sunshine, it's good to see. Got a rope winch, so the guys have been lifting everything up here so we're not carting stuff up and down the steps. We'll get them to get a bit of footage of one of the hooks going in. They've just gone to get some actually, so we'll wait till they lift them up and I'll record one being screwed down. But basically the tile pushes up. This is the other end of the bracket, and there's just a couple of screws that attach into the rafters. Obviously run up the roof pane of rafters. These are every 450 mil on the centres of these rafters. So some of these hooks are quite close together. Again, trying to cover off the wind as best we can. And there's a maximum 900mm spacing between them all the way along. 1350 was pushing it a bit, so we've gone for that. Just really belts and braces. And this is Van der Valk roof system. You'll see on the screws underneath there's the little horizontal line in the bolt. Sorry, you need to make sure you get that vertical so you know it's locked into the rail correctly. And then these fasten up the back. I think it's 6 Newton meters for the tightness, but we go over them all at the end. They're just kind of loose fit for the minute, so we can level the rails up once we've got all 4 on. But yeah, I'll show you a hook when it's up here, screwing that down, and then we're waiting really till all 4 rails are replicated. So you've got 2 rails under 1 row, and then there'll be another 2 rails up there for the other row. And we can start lifting some panels up and getting this buttoned up. You can also see there's a bit of a burr in this roof. So that's one of the things you will notice with your rails, which is why it's important, as Nathan's doing here, going along, to check the levels as best we can. Obviously you need it to look level from the ground more than it actually be level. If you listen to Sam from Oval and Dan at DMH, Ben from Electrical Iron, they'll have all said similar things. It's how it looks from ground level rather than if it is truly flat and square. But we make the best effort to get it as flat as we can, because once your panel's on you don't want it looking like the sea. You want it flat, you want it level. So we run a rail up these just to try and get everything touching each other once we've got one reasonably well set, and just work from that. You see Mike's just popping the tiles out we need to get the hooks on these last 2. Then get that top rail on, winch the 14 panels up. Just mapping out some of the Tigo TS4 AOs with our panels. So these are 80 volts, 15 amps, 700 watts. Maximum system voltage 1000 volts, which more than covers us. And we're pairing them with the Jinkos, and these are 435s, 32.78 volts and 13.27, I think that says from a distance, amps. So those 2 work quite well in combination with each other, and they bring safety features along with performance. So you'll see these clamped to the panel frame. They sit flush onto the panel itself, keeping a check on its temperature and also what it's outputting, and it can link into a wider management system with the Tigo Wi-Fi link thing. So it gives you lots of benefits beyond just performance. Nothing like fitting solar panels in the dark. Still needs must, 5 to go, and we're out of here. Itself is upstairs, so it's not really a loft space, this one, because there is open access to it, and it's all kind of an unheated space, the same as downstairs. Because it's a bit full down there, we've popped the PV up here. There's natural light through this Velux window. It's all the same temperature in here, upstairs to downstairs. There's no real difference. We've got our inverter, so say the array is 6 kilowatt. We've got 2 strings of 7 panels each, and the AC isolator coming in there. Our DC strings run up, they pop through some Copex because they travel through the cavity into the main roof of the house. As you'll see when we look outside, we're in a little workshop building here. The main house is just the other side. This hole was already cored for some AC cables, so that was handy. We've just repurposed it for our DC as well, and popped a bit of extra protection on for those. You can see underneath on this inverter there is an allocation for 3 strings should we need them. We don't in this case. We're quite straightforward with the PV side of stuff. When you're using the GivEnergy all-in-one, you don't need to get too fancy with your inverters. It just needs to give you that input. So there's no CT monitoring on this. There is no smart comms with it. It is just a PV inverter that's going to output that AC energy into the Give system, and that goes across the top of these rafters and down in the corner. And we've got fire clips on those. The guys did bring a data cable up. It's currently unused, just tucked away out there. But if the inverter ever changes in the future with all these new products that are coming out all the time, there's a data cable there to make use of, should it be needed. Bit of forward thinking. As always, we've got the DC isolators. I've said about these so many times already. But if this inverter ever needs replacement, can be isolated and safely done. These MC4 plugs and sockets are just plastic. I don't think you really want to be handling those with live voltage on. I know both would have to go wrong at the same time, but you've got your hand in there. It doesn't take much for that to snap off if something's become brittle because there's a fault on the inverter. It's just a risk you don't need to take. If you've got a DC isolator in the fixed wiring system, and BS7671 is a fixed wiring standard, it can be done safely. As long as properly qualified electricians are making these off correctly, as we have done, we'll have a look inside one and show you how we've done that. They're no more dangerous than the AC isolator just next to it. That's just as much at risk of setting on fire as a DC isolator if it's wired up loosely and not terminated correctly. We shouldn't be punishing the equipment for poor installation practices. Let's deal with that problem and allow safe points of isolation for electricians in wiring systems so they're not messing about with MC4 plugs with live voltages on. I'm not going to change that view because I think it's important to keep sharing it. There's such a lot of content being pumped out that these things don't be needed and they're a fire risk and insurers don't like them. Insurers don't like paying out because stuff's set on fire. These are the things that are setting on fire because of poor installation, because we've let the industry allow anyone to stick solar systems in. That's the short story. Let's do something about that. That's the real issue. If we want to be truly raising awareness around safety and all the rest of it, let's focus in on that. But yeah, we'll have a look at these. The other benefit is, of course, you can pop a lock through, so you can lock that off if you're going off somewhere else to work. Super duper safe. But yeah, I'll open that up, show you inside. You can see how we've made it off and ferruled the ends and such. Wouldn't normally do top entry on the AC side of things. If this was outside, most definitely. Obviously, we're in an indoor environment. They're the high-let glands. So these are IP68 super duper glands if you've not tried them. They don't have a lock nut on the inside. Can't use them on these because they're threaded. So we've used the threaded ones on the DC. But it's just a way to separate the AC and DC. We've not gone for a trunking on this one. You may have noticed downstairs as well there's no trunking. We're trying to do it with the cables out on the wall as neatly as we can, just to see how it looks. Sometimes the trunking, you've got all your cables bunched together, and whilst it looks neater, you're maybe not helping yourself in terms of having AC and DC together and data in the same place. So it's just a new way of approaching it. The AC loops across up the top and into the back of the inverter. We're away from the heat sink, and that is HO7, whatever it is, so it's heat resistant. And then the DC is all separate underneath, running up the side. Just a different way of trying to do it on this install, and we'll see how it all looks at the end. And you guys can give us your feedback in the comments for if you think it should be in trunking, or Copex, or conduit, or if a bit of clip direct is a better approach. I need to get some black clips. Didn't have any the other day, so I just used 1.5 clips to bang that on. You can see Matty's got some cable tie brackets on, so he's done this bit a lot neater. I'm going to swap those because that is irritating, but it's all I had at the time. We'll get that done and put together. Okay, so these DC isolators, you can see we've got a ferrule on the end, if it'll focus, and that's to make sure all these strands stay inside the terminal cage on the bottom. I mean, it's a cage clamp, so you could use the fine stranded wire twisted together in the cage clamp and it'd probably be okay. However, with this being a DC system and all of the effort to try and make these as safe as possible, with any stranded cable on the AC side we would be fitting ferrules regardless of cage clamp or otherwise, so we're doing the same on these as well. And you can see how these work. So we've got our line, if you like, coming in positive, runs up through the top of this, through this little buzz bar in the top. So if you're seeing these on your DC isolators, don't be removing them and just doing in and out. It basically runs through the switch twice just to give it the contact separation with the currents and voltages involved, so it's not going to damage the isolator when it's operated basically. But you've got the positive coming in, runs up through this little buzz bar, back down and then out through here and then off and into the inverter. Now we are going to heat shrink these up. We've just flagged them with tape for the time being, but we're going to come back and do that. We've got all the cleats and clips to sort out as well. It's just a case of getting the inverter on the wall, tidying all this up as best we can, leaving it ready to dress away properly later on. So we'll pop a bit of heat shrink on, mark these up as pos and neg. We need to do the same on the inverter look as well. We've just got red flags on the positives with the tape, and obviously we need to mark the black as white. So we've got that to do in just a sec as well. But yeah, it is what it is on those. Lockable, safe working mechanism, and as long as you make sure you correctly crimp your ends, get everything in the right terminals, torque them down nice and tight, set them up correctly with the buzz bars, these are perfectly safe to use on DC electrical systems. They are designed for it. Who knew? So we're at the pre-commissioning stage now on the inverter itself. You can see I've got the PV check from TIS. So for those of you who want to see a bit of testing with this, there is a video out, one or two before this one, where I go into that in full. So if you want to see a test sequence, you can check that out. I'm not going to include it on this video here. You can see we've got our AC feed in, got the DC string isolators, ever important. The DC strings originate through this loft space here at the other side. It's quite a bit way along where they actually exit the roof, so we've got an SPD enclosure through in that loft space for the SPD element, because these inverters, I believe, don't have the SPD protection built in. It's shown in the instruction manual to include them, so we are going to do that, but they're as close to the array as we can get them where they're going to be most effective, I think. So that's where they're going to be. I'm just going to run through this test now, do that off camera real quick, and then we'll have a look how all this comes together once we've got the power on. There is 2 strings of 7 panels, 435 watts on each one. Today is a much, well, the wind is a bit condensated and wet from the rain last night, but it's a much brighter day out there, so we can have a look at that, get that sorted. Spacings on this inverter, ever important. You need 300mm all around, which we have got. It's hard to show on camera, but this is a 300mm spacing down this side. You can see down here, got the cables running up in some oval Plexicon, and then we've got a piece of wideish timber with the 2 cables on, just to illustrate that. This isn't actually a corner anyway, it's chimney breast. There's plenty of adequate ventilation around there. I'm more than happy with that. It's not going to be an issue. It's actually 310mm at that side. We've got about 600 at the top, 340 off this timber here, and then lots of space down to the floor. And like I say, it's a well ventilated upstairs, we're going to call it. There is an open stairway with proper fixed stairs in position, and the downstairs is uninsulated as much as the upstairs, so there's no real difference in one or t'other. And let's move on. We'll jump back when this is all on and hopefully show you some generation. Okay, so we're into our domestic board. You can see we've got our SWA gland on there, looking nice and neat. Into the bottom, there's a banjo, well, one of the big piranha nuts on the inside, and again, that's earth down inside here. So we've got that now back on. The customer's house loads are onto these 2 boards, and that runs away and feeds across to the AIO and gateway. So you can see we've got our grid feed in from a switch fuse at the meter box, in through the main switch here, up to do all the magic in the electronics in the top, and then we've got our AIO and PV feeding into these. PV's currently off because the guys are putting the bird guard on and trimming the rails up there, so we've just got that all isolated for the time being. And then we've got the load, which runs out of this one, down our steel wire armour, back to our single phase board. AIO's down here on the wall, we've got our 300mm spacing off the corner, got an isolation point for it up here, just need to clip that little cable so it's nice and tidy, but otherwise that's all sorted and ready to go. And we have got the light switch here, which used to be for a garage door, which is now being blocked up and made into a window, so that can come off and be moved. There is loads of content on the channel already around the gateway and AIO, how that works. If you want to go and have a delve into those, please do so. But just to briefly explain, the PV is a 6 kilowatt array, so that will feed into here when it's sunny enough. The AIO is a 13.5 kilowatt hour battery. It can export continuously at 6 kilowatts, or import if you want to charge it up from the grid or from the solar if it's sunny enough. And if the grid is to drop away, this will automatically switch over to run from the battery, and also, if it's sunny, the PV. So you can have that 6 kilowatts coming out of the battery and potentially 6 kilowatts off the PV array to sustain your house loads when you are off grid, which is really, really handy. And obviously, if you want to take advantage of an overnight tariff where you can maybe pay 7p a unit for your power or whatever, you can pump that into here, ready to discharge through the day dynamically into the house loads. It gives loads of flexibility, loads of opportunity to make use of tariffs, renewable generation and everything else. There is lots and lots of benefits to this system when you are having an AC coupled battery. But like I say, loads of content on the channel already on that. Go and have a dig through if you're interested to learn more about the AIO and gateway. So we are on and running. The 2 strings are kicking out at the minute, 270 watts. It started raining again outside. You can see we've put 0.1 kilowatts. If I go into the settings, have a look at status, down to solar, we can see we've got 138 watts off one string and 138 watts off the other string. They're both kind of following each other, as you would expect. They're one above the other. And as it gets brighter, obviously that voltage and power will rise and fall. You need to remember that your power figures and your voltage figures are always based on those standard test conditions, and obviously if it's raining and it's dull, they're essentially not going to generate very much. So unfortunately that's as far as we can go on that. But the beauty of having the TIS gear here is we can do a performance test and ensure that based on the light level we've got at the minute and the panels we're using, that they are working as they should be doing. And I've run through that test and it's absolutely spot on, so it gives us the verification. And if you want to see how that is done, look back a couple of videos ago and you will be able to take a look. Otherwise, we're just going to dot all the I's, cross all the T's and run through our labels, make sure our test sheets are all filled in as per normal. See, the guys have already popped some information on here already, and yeah, we'll see how we get on as we close this one up. So you can see in the inverter data, this is kind of what's happening live. You can click get data and it will request the information from the inverter and then populate it. And you can see here we've got 234 volts. The PV's putting in 264 watts, and you can see it's currently drawing nearly 5.8 kilowatts, which is charging the battery at present while it runs through its conditioning cycle. 50 hertz, we've got a load of 50 watts, so there's not a lot going on in the house at present, and you can see the inverter there is drawing its 6 kilowatts to fill itself up. As we scroll along, again you've got all of the frequency information, the percentage of power in the battery, the temperature of the battery, that's all in there. Check your software version. There is some settings that you can play with in here, so if you want to do a time charge you can do that, same for discharge and your export. And then you can set your battery options if you want to hold on to, sorry I've got the camera down a bit low there, if you want to hold on to more than the 4% in reserve you can do. Just quickly swing through those again so you can actually see what I was talking about, and you just leave it in the eco mode. You can see here we've actually detected the customer had their underfloor heating left on overnight, so if you can see that little spike there, that's the thermostat for that kicking in to reheat itself. So you can use these kind of apps to monitor your consumption and see if you've got any parasitic drains. So you can see here they had their electric heater on through the course of the evening, and those spikes a little bit deeper because of that, and then the electric heater goes off when they've gone up to bed later on at the night, and then obviously you can see the spikes in the floor. And then here is where the battery's in its cycle to get itself charged up and conditioned. You can see it running through there. We've got grid power 6 kilowatts, battery's taking 5.8, and demand from the house 84. No solar generation because it wasn't currently on, and then you see there we've had solar generation up to 638 watts, and now as it started raining again that's just dropped away. So you can see there the demand, we've got the 2.2 kilowatts there, that'll be the underfloor heating again kicking back in, and then we've got solar generation of 462, and it's just interesting the level of information that's available in here. And as the installer you've got all the remote control on the system itself, so you can change settings and whatnot. And like I say, at the minute it is running through its initial calibration. It's done most of it. You can see it's done calibrating, it's just charging, it's calibrated most of itself, and once it's charged that should be it. Let's see if we can look at the dashboard. So you can look at the dashboard here, this is what it's generating presently, 272, consuming 71, and then the battery's charging 5.8 kilowatts, and we're importing the majority of that. Obviously these figures, while you go through the initial stage of calibrating the battery and all the inverters, GivEnergy say to allow 24 hours and not really to pay a great deal of attention to these. They kind of sort themselves out in that time frame. They're not going to be super duper accurate from the get-go. The finished array up on the roof, there's 7 Jinko panels with bird guard underneath, looking perfectly flat. The guys have done a cracking job on there, and we've got all of those clamps mid and end the correct distance away from the ends of those panels as per the manufacturer spec. End caps in place, as you can see up the side, and the bird guard has been trimmed matched to the shape of the roof as best we can. And this is the bird guard that clips onto the underside of the panels. Loads of different options are available. However, we prefer that to solar skirt to allow good airflow under the array in the warmest parts of summer. And as you can see, these Jinko 435 watt panels with their Tigo optimizers underneath are now set to generate up to 6 kilowatts per day once we get some sunshine hitting onto that array in hopefully not the too distant future. And like I said, we've took this over to the top right hand side of this particular roof space to make an effort of stopping some of the wind that may blow down this valley from hitting onto it too severely, having had the customer tell us about one or two tiles along the outer edge pop up from time to time. So I hope you found that interesting, having another look through another GivEnergy all-in-one installation complete with solar PV. And for those of you who are interested in how the G99 process works, how the testing works, and some other bits and pieces, there is 3 prior videos to this one which run through all of that. So if you want to dig into that, go and take a look. We've tried to focus a little bit more on the roof work on this one. It's difficult for me because I don't like being up on the scaffold. That's not my job in all of this. And I've been relying on Matty and Nathan to get me a bit of content up there when I've not felt quite brave enough myself. They've done a cracking job. It was really windy one of these days. We couldn't even contemplate working on the roof. All in all, I think they were up there a couple of days, getting the rail and hooks and panels on. They're getting much faster, more efficient at this with every job we do, and I think we've got a good handle on how we approach our solar installations. If you have got any tips for us, or you've seen somewhere we can improve, please do drop it in the comments below. We are not perfect. I'm not here to lecture to others about what you should be doing. I'm just sharing my views and experiences along the way of installing solar PV and battery storage systems. If you're a consumer and you're interested in having one of these in your home, please do get in touch. There's a link in the description to our website, and you can find all of my contact details through the YouTube About Us information section. And it'd be great to pop a proposal over against your renewables journey. Even if you're a distance away, we do travel. We have done jobs further afield than our local area for customers on YouTube, so don't let that put you off. And otherwise, thank you for watching. If you haven't already, give us a thumbs up and subscribe to the channel, and we'll see you on the next one.